We are back at it again with another mock draft. It's been a while. The Super Bowl has happened. I've been MIA. Just a lot is happening with work, so I don't have too much time. We're getting ready to open up the place and get started. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. I hope you all had a fabulous February, because I haven't really recorded a video since February started. But anyways, I just want to do another mock draft since it's post-Super Bowl. This is the first mock draft I'm doing since the order has been locked. And then the next mock draft we do, hopefully that's next week, we're going to have trades. And there's a lot of things I want to talk about because a lot of my theories and assumptions are starting to come to light. And there's one I'm really just like, God, like I don't know. Like if you ask me if I was tired of being right all the time, I'd probably say no. But anyways, let's get into the first peek of the draft, and that is the Jaguars with Evan Neal. So here's my thing with this. Like, I think that the Jaguars should definitely not go edge, just because, given the fact that they're investing in Trevor Lawrence. Like they could get edge. This is a deep O-line class, so I will agree with that. But I think the most important thing is developing Trevor Lawrence. Like there's no point in taking an edge rusher and then you're going to take another second round guy who may not be ready. Like get your anchor tackle, get your anchor guard, or whatever you got to do early. And I say guard because I think that they're like I've said this before, and like now a lot of people are saying it. Like Ikem Ekwonu could be the number one overall pick, and I think that kid should fall no further than 3, realistically. But like the draft is volatile. People a lot of people make decisions based off emotions, which is the dumbest thing you could do. Cough, cough, the Raiders. But they probably won't do that anymore because John Gruden's gone. But anyways, I think they're going to go with Evan Neal because it's like you're going to have a surefire bet at tackle to play alongside with Trevor Lawrence and develop and create that chemistry for years to come. Now, my counter argument would be if you think Cam Robinson and Walker Little are going to be your tackles for the future, take Ikem Ekwonu because I am now firmly believe that if Ikem Ekwonu comes in and plays guard, I think he's worth the pick in the top 5 for guard. Even if you just know you're going to put him at guard, because I think he's going to be a top 15 guard immediately, because he's much more polished and pass pro as a guard. And in the run game, he's just easily I would say he's the best, even as raw as he is as a tackle, he is the best tackle and guard prospect for run blocking. Like, it's not even close. So Jaguars are definitely going to take an O-lineman here. I don't really think I think it's very slim that they go with anybody that's not Neal, Ekwonu, or maybe even Cross. Like, I know Cross has been picking up steam, and a lot of these players are starting to move around the draft board because of hype and narratives and stuff like that. And Cross is one of them. And I think that I've said a few times in these videos, like Cross to me, I had my doubts, but I talked to some people on Twitter about it. And Cross is like, you either love him or you hate him. I think he's going to be one of the best pass blocking tackles in this class. And I think he's going to be a very, very, very talented tackle in the NFL. But feel free to disagree. Like, I know it's hit or miss with him. Like, a lot of people love him, a lot of people hate him. Anyway, second pick is the Lions with Aidan Hutchinson. So I went with Aidan Hutchinson for the Lions because, like, to me, the Lions are drafting best player available. That's, like, the beauty of being bad. Even though, like, I'm sorry, Lions fans, but, like, I think you guys are going to make some noise sooner rather than later. But right now, you're bad. Like, the way that 2021 ended, you are a bad football team. With promise. I want to add that, with promise. Like, there's things you need, but I think Aidan Hutchinson is one of them. Like, I think your defense, I think the offense is not bad. Like, I think it's way worse than people want to give it credit. But you have a decent offensive line. You're set at tackle. Penei Sewell is going to develop. I think he's going to take a leap next year. Goff will be there to mentor the next guy you bring in, and you need a wide receiver. But on the defensive side of the ball, you hope Okudah comes back and he's fine. Maybe you draft another corner later on in this draft. There's pretty good depth at corner, and then you kind of need to build in from the defensive side of the trenches. And I think Aidan Hutchinson is going to be that player that anchors your defensive line for a while. Like I think he's probably, there's a few players that may not be the most sexy names that I think are very cannot miss talents. Whether they don't live up to their ceiling is one thing, but I think they will just be solid. And a lot of those players, like there's not much of a gap between the boom or bust side of things. It's a very high floor with a very low ceiling. Poster child for that in this draft, I think, is George Karlaftis. Aside of like the edge room, another player I think is Kenyon Green. Like those are probably my two safest picks in this draft. Of like these kids are going to be good football players no matter how you cut it. Whether you think they're going to be Pro Bowlers, All World team, or they're just going to be solid players that have a role on your offense or defense. Pick 3 is the Texans, and I wanted to switch it up, and I know a lot of Texans fans are going to be upset with me, but I went with Kyle Hamilton, and here's my reasoning. There is a chance that Kyle Hamilton is the best football player in this draft. Like, I know a lot of people are like, oh, he's not that versatile, he's not as good as people think, blah, 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 blah. But what he could do in a defense, and like I understand there's people that are like, oh, well, because the comparison is like, oh, well, he's the Kyle Pitts of defense. Which, like, yeah, I get that, but then some people are going to say, like, oh, he's not that, he can't do this, he can't do that, blah, 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 blah. I think you're nitpicking, and I think you just need to understand the bigger picture of, like, this kid is going to be a fundamental piece of your defense and has so many strengths that you could play to that if he's not the best at playing out of the slot, if he's not the best blitzing, you can play around it because he's exceptional at the other things he's not good at, right? So I went with Hamilton because even though your offensive line needs help, this is an exceptional free agency offensive line class. There are so many players you can get in free agency to fix that offensive line. 2, you're probably going to have another first-round pick when you trade for Deshaun Watson. That is going to happen. So if that's the case, you could probably trade, let's just say, I don't know, with like someone in like the teens. Maybe you trade him to the Eagles. Maybe you trade him wherever, and you get a Tyler Linderbaum, and then you're like, damn, like this draft isn't looking so bad because now we have an elite safety and we have a generational center, and we just scoop someone up in free agency. Like, I think that with this pick, yes, I know that, like, Ikem Ekwonu is here. Charles Cross is here. The value is there for offensive line, but look at the bigger picture and look at context of all the moving pieces around you, right? This kid is going to be a cornerstone of your defense, and you could still fix the offensive line with later picks, with free agency, the whole 9. I wouldn't worry about this so much. I would just take the best player you can, and you could argue that's KT, you could argue it's Hamilton, you could argue it's Ekwonu, you could argue it's Cross, whoever. But you can't screw this pick up. The only way you screw it up, in my opinion, is if you take someone like KT who has high bust potential and you bust. That's how you screw this up. It probably isn't even a bad idea for someone like the Texans to trade back and trade with someone who either really wants that tackle that they need, or like the edge rusher they really want, or maybe if they're desperate enough or worried enough, a quarterback that they want. I don't think there's any quarterback that deserves to go number 3, but if someone's drooling over Malik Willis and they don't want to run the risk, they could trade up for it. Like, I would not be super upset with the Hamilton pick because there's so much more that goes into that pick. Pick 4 is the Jets, and I went with Kayvon Thibodeaux. I think this draft is going to go 2 ways for the Jets. They're either going to double down on offense, or they're going to go defense and offense, or they're going to double down on defense. I think there's many scenarios where they go edge corner, edge safety if Hamilton falls, or they go tackle receiver or tackle, etc. Like they could really cut this up anyway. I think if Kayvon Thibodeaux falls to them, they're not going to pass on him. I just think with Robert Saleh's defensive background and the potential of Kayvon Thibodeaux, I've been an advocate for like, hey, I think this kid's going to be a bust. Like I think he's going to be a bust. Let me back up. I think he has potential to be a bust. I think with now where I'm at is he's probably going to be a very good player. There is that room to bust. I think his landing spot is going to come into a marginal effect of his development. But I will say this. I think the media is getting tired of not having anything to talk about. That's why they're bringing up all these character concerns with Kayvon Thibodeaux out of nowhere. Like, it's just like, oh, yeah, he, like, doesn't care about football anymore. Right, Johnny? And it's like, where are you getting that? Like, it's like, all this stuff is like, this kid was the consensus number 1 2 months ago. And now he's falling to, like, 7 because some beat reporter was like, hey, he doesn't care about football anymore. Guys, I promise you. And it's like, what are you talking about? So I'm just going to put that to rest. That's a bunch of malarkey. I think KT's going to be a good player. There is the bust potential. Like, Jadeveon Clowney arguably had more hype than Kayvon Thibodeaux coming out, and he didn't turn out to be that great. But I can say this for any player. Like, there always is, like, that player who dominates in college and then it just doesn't translate for whatever reason. I think Kayvon Thibodeaux probably won't be that guy. I think his ceiling is just too high for him to not be worth it. And two, like, I think his floor is a lot higher than people want to give him credit. Because now all of a sudden it's like he's either great or he's trash. And I don't understand why everybody's operating with such extremes. Pick 5 is the Giants. And I went with Ikem Ekwonu. Like I mentioned earlier, this kid is going to be a top 15 guard, right? Like, I'm very confident in saying that. This kid's going to come into the league and just be, like, undeniably noticeable. Everybody's going to talk about him. To me, like, if I'm the Jaguars, I'm probably taking him because he can play tackle, and if you're cool with Cam Robinson and Walker Little, just put him at guard. That's why, like, if you're a gambler and you want to bet on draft selections, I'd throw some cheddar on Ekwonu for one. I'm just saying. But here's the thing. Let's say the Giants take Ekwonu, and they're like, all right, well, we need a right tackle. Okay, we could put Ekwonu at right tackle, see what happens. And also, like, if we could just snag one in free agency, we could put Ekwonu at left guard. And now with Andrew Thomas being one of the best left tackles in football, I think he finished top 10 according to PFF. And PFF's not gospel, but if you watched any Giants this year, like, their whole offensive game plan was like isolate Thomas in a one-on-one and double team everybody else. So, like, Andrew Thomas was just fighting for his life in one-on-ones against the best pass rusher on the team, and the rest of the offensive line was just like 4 trash cans. And I think if you put Ekwonu next to him, it really elevates the run game. Also, like, you could still stick him at right tackle and see what happens because he hasn't played right tackle. But I think he's good enough. Like, he's a redshirt sophomore. Like, this kid is my favorite player in the draft, hands down. And I think that you just can't screw this up. If he does, like, he's too good to screw up, in my opinion. But anyway, pick 6, I went with Malik Willis for the Panthers. The Panthers, to me, like, you guys are either like, we need a quarterback or we need a tackle. And here's what I'll say. Like, the Panthers are going to win the NFC South this year. Like, no question. In my opinion, like, unless the Bucs trade for Watson or Wilson, there's no way the Panthers lose this division. They were 4-0 with Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold gets hurt. He started to play a little bit bad towards before he got hurt. But let's look at the context in the bigger picture. If the Bucs don't land a quarterback, Bruce Arians will retire. I'm pretty confident in that. Sean Payton is gone. So now the Saints are like, which means probably Jameis Winston's gone. Because Jameis Winston was there because he was playing with Sean Payton, and that was the draw to stay. And then you have the Falcons, who are one of the worst run organizations ever. Like, go watch my quarterback video of where I think quarterbacks will land. And I didn't realize that the Falcons are paying Matt Ryan so much money. They are paying him so much money for really no reason. I guess it was from the Super Bowl run. That contract is just carrying over until it expires. But they are paying him a bag. So they can't really do anything. They're in a pretty strict cap situation. So my theory is, or my opinion on what the Panthers should do is, draft Malik Willis. Don't play him. Let him watch. Because he's coming from Liberty, so he really has to adjust the game speed. Let him practice with the Panthers practice squad defense, which is a very good defense. Let him just groom him for 2023. Then you'll have more draft capital, and you're in pretty good cap space situation because your defense is so young. You're not really paying anybody. The only player you're truly paying a lot of money is Christian McCaffrey. What I would do is do with what you can, because you don't have many draft picks this year, to fix the offensive line in free agency. And then next year, I would trade players like McCaffrey and Robbie Anderson for any pick I could get or player I could get and build the offensive line. Because then Malik Willis is going to come in. Odds are, if Bruce Arians leaves, the Bucs go into a rebuild. The Saints are going to be at year 2 in a rebuild, and the Falcons will probably be in year 1 of a rebuild. It's going to be your division, and you're going to have the best quarterback because Matt Ryan's going to retire. Kyle Trask is like whatever. And nobody knows who's playing. It might be Kenny Pickett who's playing for the Saints. Like, we don't know yet. I would take Malik Willis or trade back, like either one. Like I think the Steelers. Oh, and this is where I wanted to say with this pick when I talked about it at the beginning. Yo, like I don't know if any of you are on Twitter, but I was in a Twitter space for the first time, and we were talking about draft prospects, and Malik Willis came up, and I swear to God, bro, I said, and I almost got crucified on this until I explained myself, but people were debating like, oh, are any quarterbacks worth a top 10 pick? And I was like, well, I think Malik Willis is. And people were like, oh, he's trash, blah, 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 blah. But I was like, well, let's look at Malik Willis if not as a quarterback. If we just look at him as an athlete, he is one of the best athletes in the draft, no question. No question. And it's not arguable. He's one of the best athletes in the draft. And then another kid came at me and was like, oh, you don't think he's going to be a good quarterback? I was like, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the athleticism and the elite traits combined with grooming him into a quarterback. Like, I made the comparison that he reminds me a lot of Ben Roethlisberger. Huge arm, can move around in the pocket, and can break tackles. That was what Big Ben did. He was great at breaking tackles, and he was great at moving around the pocket, and he had a freaking nuke for an arm. Who is the team that wants Malik Willis more than anybody? The Pittsburgh Steelers. Like, this isn't rocket science. Like, there is no wonder. Mike Tomlin is sitting there going, oh my God, this kid can break tackles, and he has a big arm. It's like Big Ben all over again with the added mobility. Like, no, duh. The Steelers want Malik Willis, bro. It's like, it's so foolish. I don't know, man. Like, some of it's just common sense to me, and some people just try to overthink it. Like, Malik Willis is undoubtedly the only quarterback I'm taking top 10. Undoubtedly. I don't even think he's going to be, I wouldn't even play him this year, but like, undoubtedly he's going to be the only quarterback I would ever take top 10 if I was general manager. I think the Steelers definitely going to trade for this pick. I think, because like, if the Steelers don't trade for this pick, he is gone. Either the Panthers take him or someone else takes him. That's just my 2 cents. So let's go to the next pick. That is a pretty long-winded answer. Sorry. Pick 7 is the Giants, and I went with Charles Cross. This is, for me, like, I think Cross is going to be one of the best tackles, and he's a great left tackle, and I think he's going to be an all-pro. Now, the Giants' offense goes from Andrew Thomas and 4 garbage cans to Andrew Thomas, Ikem Ekwonu, who's their center? Billy Price, and then you probably would put Ben Bredesen at right guard, and then you put Cross at right tackle, and your offensive line doesn't look bad anymore. It's young. It's got 2 top 7 picks in it, like, who are pretty can't miss, by the way, and the offensive line is still loaded. Like, you could get Dylan Parham in the 2nd or 3rd. You could probably get Daniel Faalele, not Daniel Faalele, Maybe if Kenyon Green, he's someone who's falling, who I don't think will fall in real life, but he might fall in the 2nd round. Grab him in the 2nd, and that's your right guard. Like, I'm telling you, man, like, the Giants' offensive line can take the step if the draft were to fall like this. So I'm not too confident it will. I think these first 4 picks are the most volatile, in my opinion. But anyway, pick 8 is the Falcons. I went with Ahmad Gardner. I think corner is definitely the pick, because of the state of the NFC South. NFC South. Like, I feel like if you have a good secondary with unsure quarterback play, you're going to have I think either the Falcons or the Panthers are going to win this division. I just have more confidence in the Panthers because Matt Ryan is getting much, much older. But I don't know if I would take older Matt Ryan versus Sam Darnold any day. Like, I don't really know who I would pick. But I went with Gardner because this is one of the sorriest cornerback rooms besides A.J. Terrell. Like, A.J. Terrell, in my opinion, was the best cornerback in football last year, at least top 3. Like, everybody kind of knows he was slept on. And he definitely was better than Trevon Diggs. And I'm not trying to take shots at Trevon Diggs, but, like, did Trevon Diggs really deserve to make the Pro Bowl? Like, I think the Pro Bowl is such a joke. Not because of Trevon Diggs. It's just in general. Like, the game is meaningless. Like, they need to do something with it. Like, I like the idea of the 2 worst teams playing for the 1st and 2nd draft spot. I think that's a cool idea. Because it is a meaningful game. Like, it's worth watching. Anyway, I think this is edge or maybe even a quarterback, but I would trade back if I wanted to take quarterback. I don't think anybody that is worth pick 8. Probably if I had to take one, Desmond Ridder. At this point, if I'm taking quarterback top 10, I'm just banking on upside, which I really don't like doing. I'd rather just be sure in my guy. I have a lot more confidence in Malik Willis than I did a few months ago. And I have a way more confidence in Desmond Ridder than I did a few months ago. Because I didn't even have Desmond Ridder in the first round a few months ago. Now I think he should probably go after Malik Willis, before Kenny Pickett. Pick 9 is the Broncos. I went with Jermaine Johnson. This is someone who I think, like, the Broncos are a team ready to win. I also don't think the Broncos have this pick, because I think they trade for Aaron Rodgers if he doesn't retire. Maybe they trade for Watson or Wilson. I don't know. But in a team that's ready to win now, I would take the high floor player, and I think Jermaine Johnson is a very, very high floor player. If you wanted to take someone with higher upside, I would go Jabo or what's his face, Travon Walker. But I think Jermaine Johnson put his name on the map at Senior Bowl. He didn't even play in the game because he's like already flexed on everybody, and everybody knows what's good with him. Yeah, I like Jermaine Johnson a lot. I think a lot of people still have him fall into the second. I don't think so. I think he's definitely a first-rounder. And I've been saying this for kind of a while, and now, of course, he's solidified himself as a first-rounder. Anyway, pick 10. I went with wide receiver for the Jets because I think that Corey Davis is old. You could spend money on Mike Williams, but I almost would rather just have them spend the money to fix the offensive line, which isn't that bad. Like, the interior of the offensive line is pretty garbage. Left tackle is a huge question mark. It's no secret I'm not a huge believer in Mekhi Becton. If you watch any of my videos, like, you could go Kenyon. Like, I think, see, like, to me, like, Kenyon Green is so can't miss. I would definitely use a 10th overall pick on him. But again, like, you could take Stingley here. Gardner might be here. I think, though, like, to bolster that receiving core, to give Zach Wilson someone to have chemistry with for the rest of his career, and I think Drake London is probably the most can't-miss prospect at the wide receiver position. I think there's 3 players that you really can't miss on at wide receiver. It's Drake London, Treylon Burks, and this third one may be a surprise, but Jahan Dotson. I think he's flying so far under the radar. Like, that kid does nothing flashy, but what does Penn State's offense look without him? Like, there is no offense without Jahan Dotson. He's just such a solid player and does everything right, and his catch radius is so much bigger than everyone wants to give it credit for. Like, I'm a huge Pickens guy. Like, I love Pickens, but I would put Dotson over Pickens and over the Ohio State kids because, like, Dotson just reminds me of Terry McLaurin. Not as good of a contested catcher, but, like, he just is so solid. Like, it's just, like, there's really no X factor, but everything is good. That's my case for Jahan Dotson. And I will release a video on my receiver rankings when I get to dive into the tape and everything. It's just been really, really tough with work. Anyways, pick 11. I went with, speaking of, Treylon Burks for the Washington Commanders. I went with Treylon Burks because I was thinking of taking Desmond Ridder, but Washington has said they're going to be very aggressive for a quarterback, and I don't think they're going to have huge pull for a quarterback, to be honest with you. Like, I don't think it's the sexiest of landing spots. Now, the counter argument would be it's a crappy division. They could, a quarterback could probably come in and win it, or compete with the Cowboys, but I think their pull is for players of the caliber of, like, Jimmy Garoppolo. Maybe I think Derek Carr would be best case scenario. Teddy Bridgewater. Like, I don't think they have the pull for Rodgers, Wilson, etc. But I think they definitely need a wide receiver. And I think whichever quarterback they can get, they are still going to have a first-round pick. And if they don't get a quarterback, I think they do draft a quarterback. And I think Treylon Burks with Terry McLaurin would be a very, very scary duo. Because I think Treylon Burks is that X receiver that they desperately need because they have Terry McLaurin doing everything. And I think that Treylon Burks would be a great complement to Terry McLaurin because they both could do everything. I think that McLaurin would be way better out of the slot than Burks would be. But Burks could play out of the backfield. Burks could play out of the X. Burks could play in the intermediate out of the, what's it called? The Z. Like, I don't know. I think Burks is a great receiver. Pick 12 is the Vikings, and I went with Derek Stingley. I think this is Stingley or Sauce. I just think the cornerback room is so bad that they're going to keep Kirk Cousins for another year because I don't think anybody wants to trade for Kirk Cousins' contract. I think a lot of people would trade for Kirk Cousins. I just don't think anybody wants to pay him $45 million for 1 year. And I don't think the Vikings, like I have picked the Vikings to win this division the past 2 years, and Mike Zimmer just keeps banging me like over and over and over again. Like, oops. He just coaches them out of games. Sometimes Kirk Cousins poops the bed. The other thing is I think that a lot of competitive teams, like the Broncos maybe, I don't think they want someone who notoriously cannot show up in big games. Like that's my other thought on this. But pick 13 is the Eagles, I believe. Nope, it's the Browns. I went with Jameson Williams. I probably would have went Drake London if he was here, or Treylon Burks. But I think that I don't know what's going to happen with the Browns at quarterback. I think they're buyers for Russell Wilson. I think they're buyers for Deshaun Watson, etc. I think they're fed up with Baker Mayfield, and I've been saying this for a while. But the point remains, like I thought about going linebacker. I just didn't know. Like I think receiver is such a more glaring need because your receiving core without Jarvis Landry is like Donovan Peoples-Jones, Rashad Higgins, and I don't even know. I think David Njoku is like a very, very slept-on player. I think he's kind of like Evan Engram-esque. But the quarterback play is really holding him back, I think, and scheme. I don't think they could scheme enough for the receivers with Baker Mayfield. I think they have to just live and die by the run in their offensive line. I think Jameson Williams, like this has to be an X receiver, and I think Jameson Williams could be an X receiver regardless of the ACL tear. Kids are just bouncing back from ACL tears like they're nothing. So I don't really think that it's too big of a deal. I would take Williams here. I don't really know. Like you could take an interior defensive lineman or maybe another edge, but like I think receiver is so bad, like it's just not worth it. I also thought about taking Desmond Ridder here. But anyway, pick 14 is the Ravens, and I went with Devin Lloyd. They desperately need help in that linebacker room. I also probably would have went corner if Sauce was here. I thought about Andrew Booth, but I think if Booth, I think I would take Lloyd as a talent over Booth. Just being with how injury prone that Ravens, corner room is. I just think that they need the depth. Like I think they need depth in the cornerback room and the linebacker room. Because like you guys have Patrick Queen who's kind of getting up there. You have Josh Bynes who's played very, very well. But I just think that your linebacker room is getting old and it's starting to just regress. Devin Lloyd's going to easily fill this hole, make your linebacker room a lot stronger. But it's going to be interesting to see how the defense operates without Wink Martindale anymore. And I don't know if I agree with that firing, to be completely honest. He did get the short end of the stick with injuries. Like he lost all of his corners and Lamar got hurt. So I don't know how much that falls on Wink Martindale. That's probably the firing I disagree with the second most. The first being Brian Flores. I think that was the dumbest thing that the Dolphins could have done. But anywho, pick 15 is the Eagles, and I went with David Ojabo. This is probably one of my favorite edge rushers in the class. I think his ceiling is stupid high. I also think he's a player where for the Eagles, you're like kind of in limbo where you're competitive, but you still can easily make your roster a lot better. Quarterback is a huge question mark because I don't think you'll ever win a Super Bowl with Jalen Hurts. I don't know if you'll win playoff games with Jalen Hurts, but you'll dominate the regular, like you'll beat bad teams in the regular season. I think Nick Sirianni's a very good coach. I think he'll bring out the best in Ojabo. Very high upside player. Edge's position in need. But yeah, and then at pick 16, I went with for the Eagles, Andrew Booth. I think you also need another cornerback to line up across with Darius Slay. Darius Slay had a great year, but who knows if it's sustainable. Andrew Booth is another high upside player that you could groom while you look for a quarterback. Like I think these players you guys made the playoffs this year, right? So like might as well find players that you could groom and develop and push for the playoffs and then look for a quarterback at the same time. I think that's very, very likely. I also think there is a chance that if Malik Willis falls, the Eagles pounce on him, especially after the Senior Bowl, especially after all the hype he's been getting. I think they realize he is a better Jalen Hurts with a bigger arm. And I think it's really easy for the Eagles to want to move off of Jalen Hurts because they only have second-round capital in him. He wasn't a high first-round pick or anything like that. But anyways, pick 17 is the Chargers, right? Yeah, and I went with Trevor Penning. You guys need a right tackle pretty bad. And I think Trevor Penning is, like, a lot of people don't like Trevor Penning. I think Trevor Penning is going to be a lot better than people think. He's just an absolute beast. I think he's 6'7". Let me see. Yeah, he's 6'7", 320. Humongous. Absolute mauler. I think with putting him in that Chargers scheme with Brandon Staley, another good coach, like, I just think that a lot of these players, these high upside players, are going to find teams that have a position of need and are very good at developing talent. I think Nick Sirianni potentially could be one of those coaches, and I think Brandon Staley is one of those coaches as well. Pick 18 is the Saints, and I went with Desmond Ridder. New regime, I think they have a new GM. They definitely have a new head coach. I just think that they're going to want to build from the ground up, being that they don't have Sean Payton to guide them anymore. And, Drew Brees is gone, et cetera, et cetera. Drew Brees has been gone, but my point is, like, they have to basically reinvent themselves. Especially now that Sean Payton's gone, I think they're going to take a quarterback that they can hopefully have their franchise guy. And I like Desmond Ridder. Desmond Ridder has grown on me since the Cincinnati-Alabama game in the national playoffs. I think that he made a lot of impressive throws, and I think he was one of the best quarterbacks at the Senior Bowl. Probably right behind Malik Willis. Sam Howell impressed. Kenny Pickett impressed, but they also just, they're not impressive enough, in my opinion. That's why I think that, for me, they've really fallen down the board, and I don't think as many teams are going to be quarterback, pounce on them, because the upside outside of Ridder and Willis is so low. None of these players are going to be elite talents. I don't think. I could be wrong. All of us could be wrong. I just think if gun to my head, I had to pick one, it'd probably be Malik Willis, and if I had to pick the second one, it'd be Desmond Ridder because of the mobility aspect. That's what, Kenny Pickett can move. Sam Howell can move, but they don't have Kenny Pickett, I think, is in the 99th percentile, if I am saying this right, of hand size. He has 2 gloves, and there's not a single quarterback in the league, or has ever been in the league, with hands as small as Kenny Pickett's. And I don't know if that's really a big concern, but it is something to evaluate and think about. And Sam Howell is really good ball placement. I just worry about long, and I hate, a lot of people hate this comparison, but he just reminds me a lot of Baker Mayfield, and I'm not a Baker Mayfield guy. I think he's I think he is the most overrated quarterback in football by far. So that's my concern with Sam Howell. I think he might be a better Baker Mayfield, though, if I'm being honest. Pick 19 is the Eagles, and I went with Kenyon Green. A lot of the receivers I liked for the Eagles are off the board. So I just figured, offensive line is getting old. Kenyon Green is the most, in my opinion, one of the most can't-miss players in this draft. He could play anywhere on the line except for center. All at a high level. Eagles just making their team better. That's what I would do. Just make the team better in every way we can. And I think Kenyon Green fills any hole you need him to fill on the offensive line. Pick 20 is the Steelers, and I went with Tyler Linderbaum. You have J.C. Hassenberg, I think his name is. Hassenhaus? Hufflepuff. But anyways, I think, just generational talent here. Put him on the offensive line, feed Najee Harris, and everybody's going to have a good time. But again, I don't think the Steelers have this pick. I think they trade up for Malik Willis 100%. Or they trade for a big-name quarterback like Watson or Russ or whoever. But if they do stay put, I think offensive line definitely is the pick. With Ridder and Willis definitely being gone. The other player or position I think they would draft is a corner. But their offense is, especially with no quarterback, it's just going to live and die by Najee Harris. Make his life as easy as possible. Pick 21 is the Patriots, and I went with Nakobe Dean. Similar to the Ravens, the linebacker room is either getting really old or is really thin. I think Dean could just go. He's just an exceptional prospect. He goes sideline to sideline in the blink of an eye. And I just think that the size people think is a concern, which I would agree with, but I don't think it's as big of a concern as people are making it out to be. That's my opinion on it. I think he's going to be a great if all else fails coverage-wise, he's going to be a great run stopper, no matter what. Pick 22, I went with Garrett Wilson for the Raiders. I'm very curious to see what the Raiders do because there is a chance they land Devontae Adams. There is a chance that Derek Carr leaves, and then they're a huge question mark at quarterback. Their O-line and D-line need work. It's so crazy that the Raiders were as competitive as they were with as many needs as they have. But point remains, I think they need receiver more than anything, being that, well, I don't know, man. Like, I'm a believer in Zay Jones. I think Hunter Renfrow is one of the most slept-on receivers in the league. He's definitely getting the hype he deserves, but still, man, like that guy, his routes are just nuts. And like for wide receivers, the biggest thing for me, if you're not like a DK Metcalf, is can you run routes? Like how polished are your routes? And I think Hunter Renfrow is a top 10 route runner in the NFL. Like I don't like above anybody. Like I don't know. I think I go into a lot of these tangents and rabbit holes as I'm talking about players, and I'm trying not to do that anymore because these videos get really long. But I think Garrett Wilson, I'm having him as the consensus number one. I think he's probably the better of the two Ohio State kids. But anyways, pick 23. The Cardinals went Travon Walker. Definitely need help at edge. Definitely need help in corner. I think Kyler Murray stays. I think that's just a bunch of, I don't know what that is, but like I think it's just a bunch of crap. If he leaves, he leaves. I don't think he ever will. I don't understand. I mean, I just don't know who's going to want to pay him or has $50 million to pay him every year. To be honest. And like, really? What has he done to deserve $50 million? Like, I get it. He's a cool talent. He's a great talent. Can do it all, blah, blah, blah. But they haven't won any playoff games with him yet. Maybe one, if I'm not mistaken. But I don't think they've won a playoff game with him. Why do you think you deserve $50 million is my question. Because the results aren't $50 million worth. That's just my opinion. But anyways, definitely Travon Walker could go top 15 in my opinion. Great in coverage, great off the edge, very, very comfortable in coverage. I think he's very, like this edge class is super, super talented. I think with J.J. Watt just being old and the edge room just being really slim, this would be a great pickup. Because with J.J. Watt and a competitive team, you want someone who could, like, Travon Walker could play now, but his upside can carry him a lot higher, I think. Pick 24 is the Cowboys. And I went with George Karlaftis. I would definitely agree you need cornerback, linebacker, and safety. But Karlaftis falling to 24, this is a player where I am just confident they're going to be solid. I don't know how high their ceiling is, but I know how high their floor is. I think he's going with his hand placement, explosiveness. The length is a little bit of a concern, but he is a solid football player, and he will be. Like his game is just going to translate very fluently. And I think that the Cowboys are going to have a very, very good front seven, very good front seven, especially if they get Karlaftis. Pick 25, I went with Jordan Davis. Jordan Davis dominated at the Pro Bowl. I think he's definitely solidified himself. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm talking about someone else. We'll get to them because I know they're coming up. Jordan Davis, a lot of people, I think he's still better than Devonte Wyatt. I think the hype has now put Devonte Wyatt over Jordan Davis, but I think Jordan Davis is still the superior player given his size, length, speed, athleticism, just room-eating ability. I just think he's just going to, like, you're not going to be able to run with Jordan Davis there. I think it's going to make you very, especially if, like, your inside zone run scheme, like, I think that Jordan Davis is going to make that next to impossible. Not impossible, obviously, but you know what you get my point. Like, it's going to be substantially harder to run between the tackles against the Bills if they take Jordan Davis than it was last year. And they made it to the AFC. They should have made it. Well, not because they should have, but they could have made it to the AFC Championship potentially if they got the ball back in overtime or won the coin toss. Pick 26 is Zion Johnson. This is who I thought I picked for the Bills. I think Zion Johnson, after Senior Bowl, just absolutely solidified himself as a first-round pick. Kid is just a beast. People are saying he could play center. I wouldn't play him at center. I think he had to play center because they didn't bring any centers to the Senior Bowl. So they had him and I think Sean Ryan switching at center each rep. I could be wrong. I know Zion Johnson was switching at center. I think it was Sean Ryan. Could have been, but I might be wrong with that. I think with Derrick Henry being the entire catalyst of your offense, again, make his life easier. I also definitely think that the Titans need a wide receiver really bad. But I think they'll go out and get someone like Mike Williams. And Mike Williams is my go-to answer for whenever I say a team's going to get a wide receiver in free agency. But I think they could definitely get Allen Robinson or Mike Williams or potentially trade for Michael Thomas. They need a number 2 really bad. Because I think Ryan Tannehill deserves the flack he's getting, but really he's not. He doesn't have a lot to work with. Julio Jones, if Julio Jones played like he did in the divisional round, every game, this probably wouldn't be a conversation. But he didn't. Pick 27 is the Bucs, and I went with Bernhard Raimann. I really, 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 really wanted to take Kenny Pickett here. But I just think they're going to really be aggressive for Watson and Wilson to try to keep the band together for one more year. Because I think if Antonio Brown didn't go AWOL and Chris Godwin didn't get hurt, I really think they would have made it to the Super Bowl, being that their defense was healthy finally, and you couldn't stop Antonio Brown or Mike Evans or Chris Godwin. But if they go into a rebuild, I like the idea of taking Bernhard Raimann, being that he's a project-type player with first-round talent upside, and maybe you develop him into your franchise tackle as you build your new regime. Pick 28, I went with Devonte Wyatt here. Again, I really wanted to go Kenny Pickett or Sam Howell. I'm not trying to leave Sam Howell off the board. I just have Kenny Pickett a little bit higher than Sam Howell. Well, I don't know. They're neck and neck for me. But this needs to be receiver, or you need to address some help in your interior defensive line, or get a tackle. Being that, what's his face? The left tackle. He's the best left tackle in football when he's healthy. I can't remember his name. He's got the ponytail. You can literally picture his face. He chugs the beer at what's it called? Basketball games. Having a total brain fart. But they have him, and he's getting a little bit old. What the hell is his name? Some of you are yelling at the computer screen right now. I know you are. What is his name? It's on the tip of my tongue. I can't remember it for the life of me. I'm just going to have to look it up. Hold on. David Bakhtiari. Oh, my God. Could not remember that. Anyway, I think you could definitely address the guard situation y'all got going on, and maybe even center. But I think Devonte Wyatt is good enough here, and your interior D-line definitely needs work. A lot of people, I think the Packers have the most players entering free agency of any team. So they're going to need to, if Rodgers leaves, the Packers are going to be in a bad spot, is all I'm saying. Pick 29 is the Dolphins. I went with Chris Olave. I don't like Olave here. I think, not here, for the Dolphins. I think that going back, I probably should have took Pickens because I think he's a better complement to Waddle. The thing that concerns me with taking Pickens is Tua. I think Olave is a better fit for Tua because Tua has struggled to push the ball vertically down the field. That is no secret. However, with that offensive line and Brian Flores' offensive scheme, I don't know how much of it falls on Tua, trying to be fair. I think if I'm just trying to build the best team, maybe I go Pickens or even David Bell over Olave just to get an X receiver, not another intermediate guy, because Waddle kind of could do that. But I will argue as well, if you watch Waddle at Alabama, they've completely removed the vertical part of his game out of the playbook. He doesn't run vertically anymore. And I think it's because they have real concerns with Tua pushing the ball vertically. But I think the point remains this needs to be receiver, offensive lineman. And with how the board felt, I think Olave was just better than the other person I was thinking about was Daniel Faalele. I just think Olave better player than Daniel Faalele in this scenario. Chiefs at pick 30. I went with Daxton Hill. I think this could be corner or safety or wide receiver or edge. I just think with Tyrann Mathieu and his future being kind of uncertain, if he's, and I also totally forgot what his contract looks like. I think getting another safety to help Tyrann Mathieu for a year, or have Tyrann Mathieu groom him. Again, like Daxton Hill is it's between him and Brisker for the number 2. I really like Jordan Battle, but he didn't. I want to say enlist, but that's not the right word. He didn't declare for the draft, so I'm gonna go with Daxton Hill. And then pick 31 for the Bengals. I went. This has to be. It's either got to be corner or Eli Apple. Man, I kind of feel sorry for him. The whole internet just lit him on fire nonstop. And so the internet is ruthless, man. I feel bad for Eli Apple, and I also kind of feel bad for Brittany Matthews. That poor girl. That bullying. I think there's a line between teasing and bullying, and the things that are said about Brittany Matthews are not acceptable in my opinion. I get teasing her for the faces she makes, yada yada, but when it gets to the point of body shaming, telling her to kill herself, all that stuff, that's where I'm all right, guys, now you're just being that's not right. It's just not right. Should never get that far. It doesn't matter what they did. You should never ever tell someone to kill themselves, because you never know. You never actually know if they're thinking about it, what they're dealing with, what happened to them that day where they're man, I'm gonna kill myself, and then they got told hey, go kill yourself. Yo, I try to keep this channel clean, but I don't F with that. No sir, I don't think that. Nah. No way you could ever justify it. I don't care what they did. They could be the most annoying human being on the planet. You never Internet's a dark place, man. It's definitely a dark place. But anyway, back to the draft. I think Daniel Faalele, another impressive Senior Bowl player. I think that this kid. I don't know. I think if he were to get into the first round, it'd be here. If they decided to go with Trent McDuffie or Kaiir Elam or Roger McCreary, he'll fall to the second. I do think that. I think he's probably the last tackle I'd even think about taking. I mean, the Bengals tackle situation is just so bad. They need one. But I don't know, because you're picking at the back end of the second as well. It's not like you're picking at the front of the second. So I think you got to take one. You just need it so bad. But again, you made it to the Super Bowl with what you got. It's a good free agency class. Maybe you should take a corner. Pick 32 is the Lions. And I went with Kenny Pickett. I just think that, you definitely need to pick a wide receiver, but you're picking, 2 picks after this. Pickens is on the board. David Bells is on the board. Jahan Dotson is on the board. Everybody's still there. Pickett is a baby Jared Goff with higher upside. Why not take him to have him play behind Goff and be pro-ready by the time you're ready to move off from Goff or trade Goff? Because Goff didn't play bad. I don't know if I totally would take a quarterback this year, but I don't hate taking Kenny Pickett to play behind Goff. I don't hate that at all. But anyway, guys, that's going to do it for this video. That's going to do it for this mock draft. The next one, we'll have trades. So please comment, subscribe, do all that cool YouTube stuff. And I'll catch you in the next one. Peace!